That's right. That's right. They will not destroy us. We will be victorious if we do the right things. The right things, not the wrong things. We will be victorious. We'll see. We're going to find out. We're in the middle of a civil war. We're in the middle of the Second Revolution. It's 1776. Charlie Kirk, God bless him. This show is dedicated to him. Martyr, pastor, scholar, teacher, prophet, Prophet. Prophets, not people. Prophets, not people. People are a dime a dozen, unfortunately. Prophets come only once, sometimes in a lifetime, certainly in a couple of centuries or millennia. So this show is dedicated to Charlie Kirk. So prophets are people that tell you what's wrong or what's going to go wrong. And, it's logical. It's logical. Margaret Thatcher said, facts are conservative. John Adams said, facts are stubborn things. So we've had a war on truth. We've had a war on men for a long time. That's what this is about. This is part 2 of, Oh, the Power You Have. This is, Oh, the Power You Have. Rise up, O men. There's a hymn called Rise Up, O Men of God. But, that's what Thomas Jefferson said we were. So, okay. It don't matter. It don't matter. Separation of church and state, that's fine. That'll be on another show. But we're in this together, men. I'm talking to you, men, because I'm not a woman. Other people have already talked to you, women. It's not my role to give advice, especially to the enemy. What, women? No. Here's the disclaimer. It has nothing to do with men and women. It has to do with not left and right, but right and wrong. That's the spectrum, right and wrong. Where do you want to fall on it? So this is Resistance Radio. I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines. It's Dr. Jeremiah Gunn, the professor, the undocumented expert. That's the best kind, because they don't go to the seminary of leftist ideology, Marxism, nonsense, and ridiculous ideas, and say, yes, I'll drink that Kool-Aid. I'll drink to that. I'll do whatever you say. I'll regurgitate, cooperate, and graduate, because I need this. Now, if you took STEM courses, you're only moderately affected, but it's taken over, and we're going to explain everything. So first, I want to. I played the song for a reason. Those are good words from a guy who lost his way, like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes and others. I don't know if Nick Fuentes ever had a way, but I know it's lost now. And Dave Smith and other people like that. So hold that thought. But this is part 2 of the power that you have that you don't know you have, and it's time to rise up. That's why we played Uprising. It's time. It's time to. They're not going to control us. It's been going on enough. There's a great movie called Patton. It was made in the late 1900s. George C. Scott won an Academy Award for that. I think he refused it. But interesting. He says in there he's being strafed by a German after the British just told him they have air superiority in North Africa, and he's hiding under a table as this German aircraft keeps strafing him back and forth, and he finally just says, "My God, that's enough." And that's what our message is today. It's enough. The war on men has got to stop, and you can't rely on the untrustworthy to stop it, because they're not interested. They want to keep it going. So I want to have a fight. You can get a poster like that of Trump holding up his fist with the blood running down his face when the Democrats tried to kill him. There's a great meme that says, let's be clear. Let's not lie. I'm going to keep it a honey. I ain't going to lie. Let's just say it as it is. They didn't fail to protect him. They failed to kill him. They tried to kill him, and they failed. So it wasn't that they failed in their protection, despite all of the Keystone Cops crap that surrounded it. We can talk about that, but if you know anything about anything, you'll understand that they tried to kill him. And the deep state. I think that's one reason why he's not going after them with Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. He's not doing anything to anybody. Never have to pay a price. Never have to pay a price. So anyway, I want to have a fight. I'm calling out Gas and Nuisance, Kimmy Kimmel, Tampon Timmy, Fry, Don Lemonades. I want to get you in the ring. I want to teach you a lesson. Bernie Sanders, BS, you can go last because that's going to be easy. I'm not going to worry about Biden. I'll take blah, blah. But, you're our enemies. You are enemies of the United States. And I swore an oath to defend and protect the Constitution from all enemies, domestic and foreign. So we've got to realize, step one, is know your enemy. So you guys aren't capable of debate. You run the system. You rig the game. You lie and cheat and steal. A thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. They try to break all the 10 recommendations at once. It's amazing. It's amazing. The Bill of Rights is our secular 10 Commandments. They wipe themselves with it, like every day. And then they go, oh, this is a constitutional crisis. And you're right, it is. They're a perfect reverse barometer. So I want to fight these guys. I want to get them in the ring. So if you know anybody, maybe a podcaster that may be follically challenged, that is a fighter, and he can help set it up. I'm going to need some training. So anybody out there that I'm not a fighter, but I'm not over the hill. The older I get, the better I was. But I gotta fight. We gotta stand up. Now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their country. That's what they made you do in typing class. It's really party, which is our side of the aisle, our faction, whatever. Now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their party. These are the times that try men's souls, not women's souls. These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot. They're going to shrink from the time to stand up. We can't do that. Don't shrink, men. Don't shrink. Stand up. Stand up. Be counted. Now's the time. Now's the time. There's no other time. Enough is enough. Enough is, by God, that's enough. The war on men has got to stop. So I want to have a fight with these guys. I want to teach them to wipe that sickening, effeminate, effete smirk off their faces. Kimmy Kimmel, talking to you. Schmuckerberg wanted to fight Musk at one time, and I guess he was into martial arts and all that. So, and Musk asked somebody to help train him, and they were going to do it, and they didn't do it. But they don't really need to fight. Schmuckerberg's not that bad. But what did Schmuckerberg say when Trump got shot by the deep state? And fill in the blank, whatever you want. If you want to say it's the CIA, it's not the deep state. Really? That makes sense. Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They're one and the same. This is why guys like Comey think that they work for Hillary, not you and me. They're not independent. They're independents. They're effeminate. And they're on the wrong side of this fight. So we are commanded as men to be strong, be courageous. And that's what falls to us. So it's not, it's time to get this thing figured out. So let's start by explaining kind of what the war on men really is. I want to have that fight so I can get these guys who won't debate and can't debate. You can't win a battle of wits with an unarmed man, and they won't do it. They'll just do this discourse regime where bunch of papers rustling. Sorry about that. Rush Limbaugh used to do it deliberately, and so did Scott Adams, a great guy we just lost. But so the war on men. Let's pick it up where we left off. Where did it come from? Well, it came from the government education media attainment complex. No, but not that. But it started a little bit earlier than that. It started in the place called Garden of Eden, but if you prefer the other creation myth, I don't know where you're left with, because you learn nothing from it. There's nothing in it that can justify anything. It's maybe maybe it's a topic for it. Of course, it's a topic for another show. But I used to love to talk to people. I spent the last 70 years learning everything by every man is my superior, and that I may learn from them. Or in some cases, as a woman who knows what a woman is. If they don't know what a woman is, I can't learn anything from them because they don't have wisdom. But this guy, we had some guys. I worked in high tech, and we had some guys who had these killer resumes, and fascinating. One guy had a degree in computer science and medieval history from a UC system, very high caliber. Man, I love to. The guy had a portrait of Erasmus of Amsterdam in his office. If you don't know who it is, you don't need to necessarily, but very, very interesting. And I asked him who it was, and he told me, and we'd have lunch together and talk about it. I love to talk to the guy because he knew about all this stuff, And I said, "I bet am I the only guy who's ever asked you who that is?" And he said, "Yeah." They say that a pollster went door to door in the old days. This was before the internet, and he asked people just a 2-part question. Do you think? It's a 1-part question. Do you think the biggest problem facing us is ignorance or apathy? And almost every American responded, "I don't know and I don't care." So if that's you, then you're probably going to turn this off pretty soon if you haven't already. But I'm interested in how we got here. I'm interested in avoiding the past because I remember it. Cicero said, if you don't, to remain ignorant of what happened, to be ignorant of what happened before you were born is to remain a child. You run into people today that they don't know. I guess it's okay. I guess it's okay. They don't know anything about even Obama or Iran or Jimmy Carter or Lincoln or the guys on Mount Rushmore. So if the whole thing is if you have a regard for them and you reverence them, then we can talk and we can get somewhere. If you don't, because it didn't happen in your lifetime, it didn't happen in the last 10 minutes, it didn't happen on Facebook or whatever, or on your video game, whatever, then we're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to get anywhere. I'm wasting my breath, but I got to try. I've got to try. You can't not try. There's a Hebrew proverb from maybe the Talmud that says, that man is a fool who doesn't do anything because he can't do everything. I was talking to, you see ICE, you see these awfuls, AWFULs. Anyway, you see them fighting against the federal authorities, defying the Constitution, keeping the Civil War going. A few states against the blue states, against the government, against the United States. It's not against Washington, D.C. They're fighting me. They're fighting you. They're fighting the Constitution. So we're behind enemy lines. We have to put up with this stuff. That's what I'm trying to say. We don't. We've got to take these Newscoms and tampon Tims. We got to take them out. You can't take them out if you vote for them. I mean, take them out. Maybe do some prison time. Maybe they're traitors. Maybe they need to be deported if they would prefer to go somewhere else. But we can't just sit here and watch and expect them to happen. So anyway, I was talking to this woman at work, and at that time there was very sweet middle class, middle-aged in some cases, women that were protesting. All they were doing was praying in front of these abortion mills that you're paying for, whether you like it or not. You know, if an Indian doesn't have to obey the laws because they have their own laws, they have their own police force and their own tribal stuff, as long as it doesn't get too crazy, like the Mormons did in Utah, which they had to fix to become a state. But if people can do their own thing, you know, anyway. They can't though. They can't pray in front of an abortion mill and make people maybe think about what their choice they're making, pro-choice, to do what. So anyway, I was talking to her. I said, "Geez, the police don't seem to do anything to criminals, but man, are they hard on these poor women?" They would have front page pictures where these cops were taking, I think they're called nunchucks or something. It's two pieces of wood screwed together or held together with a little chain, and they had them around their wrists, and they were squeezing them to. You're not going to see that against these ice witches that are out there, these offals, but just a picture of this sweet woman and mother in agony who just, by her conscience, by her faith, like William Wilberforce, just wanted to pray for these people in front of there, and they didn't want it. The police were told by the mayor, "Go get them hard." So, you know, this lady said the stupid thing that, you know, that is often said by the left is, "Oh, well, they don't care about babies after they're born. They just don't want them aborted." You know, this is one of these self-congratulatory, assuaging bombs that people say to themselves. It's a lie. It's self-talk lying. You know, they talked about self-talk, but this self-talk. And she says they don't care about them after they're born. Well, I happen to have been involved with a crisis pregnancy center, and my family, my kids would help, you know, whatever they needed after the baby's here. Whatever they needed. We brought them furniture, baby need stuff, all kinds of things. And so I told her, I said, that's just not true. I mean, I know where you get this stuff. It's from like The View, but it's wrong. It's just not true. So she says, well, one person can't do anything. And that's back to that verse, you know. Why would she say one person can't do anything? One person with righteousness is a majority, or whatever they call that. You know, Lincoln said that we have to have the belief that right makes might, not might makes. That's why they talk about toxic masculinity and all this crap, where they're trying to strip us of righteousness. It's not about, you know, right versus left. It's right versus wrong. So they've come along, and the thief comes only to kill, steal, and destroy, says the wisdom literature. That's it. So how'd they do that? Well, they started this war on men. And historically, it's a very interesting thing I read, is that, you know, this fatherlessness, this kicking the man out of the home, not watching him abandon his family, but actually forcing him out of the home. I tell you a story about when my daughter was in kindergarten that will kind of shock you, I hope, but about having to do with the way that women were waging a war on men and flipping the narrative of, you know, men abandon their family. No, the government made women, Marxist government made women kick out men and marry the government. That's why they're obsessed with the government. That's why the Democrat Party is feminine, a gender gap. And so there's a very interesting theory that I heard expounded one time that said that, you know, the Civil War really, really destroyed this country, kind of like World War I destroyed Europe for the rest of time, you know, created World War II and so on. And how did it do that? Is you had a lot of homes, 300,000 Republicans trying to stop Democrat slavery and 250,000 chattel soldiers trying to keep slavery, just because their masters, like Robert E. Lee, told them to. So we lost 500,000, and there was a lot of fallout. I mean, some of these guys were wounded, broken on opium because of the pain they were in and so on. So you had a lot of households raised by women, maybe a woman and her aunt. I mean, the kid's aunt, maybe her sister, this kind of thing. And so you really had the fatherless homes. And that led into the generation, 1870s, 80s, 90s, that led into the generation of progressives. Teddy Roosevelt flirted with it, even though he had a good father. And Woodrow Wilson, and we just began to have these men that were turning their back on the right and moving to the left. And it was really kind of interesting. It changed the whole mindset. It's a really interesting theory, but regardless, another century later, 1860, the government actually waged real war with the Great Society on men. So, and how do they do that? They, destroy the family, destroy the father. The APA, I think, is American Psychological Philosopher Association. They said that it's like a mental illness to want to be a provider. Should I say that again? They said recently it's kind of like a mental illness for wanting to be a provider. So if a man wants to be a provider, they didn't address whether a woman wants it, if that's mental illness. But you see where this is going? Did science or social science teach them this? No. Just like gender dysphoria, they didn't come across some gene or something. They've tried and tried, but there was no science that led to this. There was no deduction of logic. Blaise Pascal was a very brilliant philosopher, polymath, and he said, when you're standing on the shore or the dock, it appears that the ship is moving. To the people in the ship, it appears the shore is moving. Where are we to find our harbor and morals? We don't have a moral compass. We're raising kids deliberately or unwittingly. We're raising young men to not be men, and through lies. And so, really, you want to destroy fatherhood? You want to, in the 70s, the TV hit its prime and was all it was mocking. 70s, 80s, 90s, mocking fathers. Went from Father Knows Best to, that was an old show in the 50s, to where the father was sort of a good man and a leader and a helper and a coach and all those things. And it's a great movie. It's a Wonderful Life. And he's in trouble because the pharmacist gave some poison unknowingly because he was distressed. He gave poison that was going to go out to this little kid. And little George Bailey's supposed to deliver it. He doesn't know what to do, so he kind of runs out. He looks, he sees a sign of a tobacco ad, pipe tobacco or something. He says, "Ask Dad, he knows." So this whole thing of Father Knows Better was just crushed and mocked, and then life imitates art. So they destroy the father. They destroy education. They find what effect they had on the school system. My junior year, junior high years, I noticed, I started to see some trend happening in junior high, and this would be in the 60s, 70s. And they were punishing the good guys. They were punishing the good kids that wanted to be good. And not what we called, there were lowriders and greasers and stoners and these different sort of gangsta elements. They weren't celebrating. They were ignoring. And then they celebrated. There's this great saying, first we abhor, then we tolerate, then we embrace, and then we have to add on. We force people to celebrate it. We force people to celebrate. We have to add on to that. First we abhor, then we tolerate, then we embrace. And and then we celebrate. We're forced. We're compelled. That's what Jordan Peterson got on the map. He said, "I'm not going to do compelled speech. I'm not going to do it. Sorry. Barry Goldwater in 1964 tried the same thing. Said, I'm going to stand up for conservative values. I'm not going to get in line with your discourse regime. And he lost. He lost. The racist Democrat LBJ took him out. So with the women's vote and the men that aren't men's vote. So they've kind of destroyed education. We had a thing called, they did that by overemphasizing women to the detriment of men, and changing the game. They made schools into things that are not boys, that are not male oriented, just the way they structured it and changed all these things. Title IX, just a constant attack on men, on manliness. And now what are they trying to do is, never mind, we can't even get into that. That's a whole other thing. They're having the men compete in women's sports. So anyway, they just want to steal and kill and destroy. They had this thing at work called Take Your Daughter to Work Day. And some of the engineers, we were about 70% male, 70% big high-tech, cutting-edge corporation. They kind of wrote to the HR lady that set it up, Bring Your Daughter to Work Day, and said, hey, I don't have a daughter. I only have a son. And B, I have a son and a daughter. So what either when is Take Your Son to Work Day, or can I just bring him? Isn't that more fair? Can I bring? And she got a lot of pushback. And, the social engineer was trying to not push back. So I've got a daughter and two sons. So I wrote to her and said, hey, look. Because she sent out this big thing and said, well, the reason we're doing it is because women don't go into STEM. They don't go into engineering. This company's proof. Well, it's proof of a fact, just an anecdote, but it isn't proof of anything that it's because of society. That's the big lie, that society was making it this way. There was a lady named Dr. Lauren. She pointed out Legos tried as hard as they could to sell Legos to girls. They tried everything. They even tried making them pink and making them little houses so they could build little Barbie houses and whatever. Just can't get them interested in it. That's just kind of, men and women are different. Why do they sell books called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? Why? What's wrong with these people? If a corporate, private sector corporation from a liberal, even leftist part of the world, Denmark, says, well, hey, we're trying, but it ain't working. Maybe they're not interested. Maybe men listen to podcasts more than women. I hope to God that women watch The View more than men and women. But anyway, I can't imagine that you would, unless you were Gavin Newsom, Kimmy Kimmel. Kimmy Kimmel, his script comes from his wife. She's the boss, not just at home, but in the studio. So he goes out there and cries on cue and reads this trash. He just vomits lies every night. It's not comedy. It's horror propaganda. So anyway, I wrote, Take Your Daughter Work Day. So I wrote to this lady. She said, the reason we're doing this is because girls are being cheated out of STEM and everything. Well, maybe they're not interested, but you think they have to be. This is the genius of the new math. Gavin Newsom or people like that pass a law that 51% of every corporation in California has to be women on the board. Really? You think that's math, huh? Two wrongs. Well, you obviously kept them back. You kept them back. Okay. I'm not sure how, but if you say so. So like Scott Adams pointed out, a lot of white men participated in this war by joining that side and committing the DEI on these people. So anyway, I wrote to this lady. I said, hey, look, I guess you're trying to level the playing field by having only Take Your Daughter to Work Day. But I said, do you know that 60% of the people in college are women? Do you know that 60% of lawyers are women? our law school graduates? Are you doing anything to fight that injustice? Are you trying to get it down to 51% from 60 and north of 60? And social engineers, and they're complaining about all this trouble in the black community because the women are making more than men, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Back to the school system. Blah blah comes along and he looks again this genius math work that says, "Oh, I noticed that people of color, children of color, are being disciplined. Specifically, blacks are being disciplined and maybe kicked out of school, which is almost impossible, and more than whites. So what we got to do is we can't do that. You can't discipline them. You can't discipline. So, I had a relative who worked in the school system, and when these new rules came down, she said, "Hey, what we have to do? We have to hire somebody and assign them to walk with that person. So if the teacher sends them out of class and they walk along with them and they make sure that they can kick the wall and the locker and they can kick the trash can, but they can't kick another person." So that's kind of what, I don't know what they do in that event, but and this this goes into the prison to school to prison pipeline. Yeah, there's a school to prison pipeline. Watch a couple of great movies about homeschooling movement. One of them's called Waiting for Superman, and one of them's called The Lottery. Phenomenal. They were made by people who didn't even have a dog in the fight, who were not interested in homeschooling at all. But they just looked at it and said, "Hey, I'm a documentarian. I want to find out what's going on." And they became real advocates for it because they saw how the system was. One of the guys said, "Hey," he sits in the car and he goes from the school. "That's the school I went to," and he goes, "That's the prison I went to." He goes, "It's a system. It's a system." So back to why are they coming down hard on the good guys? The kids are trying to be good and ignoring the other ones. Just like blah blah implemented. It's sort of like well, let's have no cash bail. Let's not. The problem is we're putting them in prison. It's this suicidal empathy. It's really suicidal sympathy, as Gad Saad called his new book, Suicidal Empathy. But it's really sympathy. They don't have any empathy. That means you can identify with them. The word compassion means to suffer together. These people don't suffer. Do you think Gas and Nuisance lives under a blue tarp and takes a dump in front of somebody's business and shoots up or snorts up or whatever? Maybe at home, but he don't do it on the street. But his compassion is to let them do that. That's not compassion so it's not empathy, it's sympathy. It's the pity party. It's like a great book written by William Vogley, The Pity Party. They wanna feel sorry for you and destroy you all in one fell swoop. So, blah, blah, this idea, there's too many of them are in prison. Trump tried to do a Second Chance Act or whatever, and black people came to the White House and said, he's the greatest president ever. My God, thank you. And he introduced him at the State of the Union. And what is the Democrat Party? The racist, Confederate, still fighting the Civil War. They want Uncle Sam's plantation. Hey, you're off the reservation. You're an Uncle Tom. See, again, the reverse barometer. Whatever they call you is what they are. And that's how they cope with it. That's how they handle the cognitive dissonance, by just swatting it away, defining it out of existence. So that idea that, you know what, we were keeping women out of college. We were keeping women out of the board. They would be on the board at the same exact rate, 13% of the population is black. 60% of the population is women. Ergo, 60% of the board ought to be. Thomas Sowell shoots this all to death with history of the world, sociology. He looks at the whole world, China, Singapore, Africa. That's not true. Whoever introduced this new math and said it's good stuff? It isn't. It's not logical. It's not. But, if we just don't send them to prison, and defund the police, and then we'll have less crime. I actually heard an awful say that on a little spoof video that was, oddly enough, on Jon Stewart. She said if there were no military, there'd be no wars. And he says, oh, so he was kind of mocking her. Oh, so if there were no police, there'd be no crime. And she says, potentially. Probably a Berkeley graduate. Potentially. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like, we're going to go back and we're going to make up. We're going to make you pay for the sins of your fathers that weren't even sins. The sins of your great-great-grandfathers that weren't sins. I mean, we're the ones who fought against it. You're going to give reparations. Give it to our side who fought to end slavery. Don't give it to or make the Democrats pay it all out of all their slush funds. Because they're the ones who did it. Don't look at us. We were trying to, cauterize that cancer, not promote it and expand it like they did for 100 years. So it's kind of like thinking like that. It's like, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll destroy men's careers with DEI. We'll ruin the colleges by keeping Asians out of Harvard so that we can let more POCs in. We're going to take, the Mom Dummy's assistant wanted to take away people's houses. Well, start with yours, sweetie. Your parents. Start with them because it's theirs. It's not yours. But this kind of thinking is like, it's like the parable of the guy that gets pulled over by a cop. And he says, what's the matter, officer? He says, you didn't stop at that last stop sign. And he says, you know what? I'll stop twice at the next one. It's okay. I'll stop twice at the next one. You're going to go back and you're going to destroy men's careers, which it's because, well, we have to, because look, they destroyed. No, I didn't. No, I never did that. I never did that. I had to sit there. I had to work with women who had no business being there, let alone being my boss. And because that's trying to make up for something, they just stand there and they wave their hand with this sort of like Caesar, with this insane counterintuitive logic. That's not going to work. It's okay. I'll stop twice at the next one. So we'll implement all this stuff. So you destroy men's education. You destroy fathers by destroying their career. You destroy families by taking the father out of the home. And, in the 60s, they did a repeat of what in the 1870s. The Democrat government went door to door and goes, hey, if there's no man here, you get more money. So they did it. And they tried to scam the system like they do now by having the guy come home occasionally. But they hired people to go out. And it's like Joe Biden wanting to hire 87,000 IRS agents to get more money out of you. That's a real good guy, isn't it? So they destroy the father as a provider. How do they destroy careers? Well, I could tell you all kinds of stories. I guess give you one analogy of my brother-in-law was a young man and wanted to be a fireman. He scored real high on the written, the physical, everything. And actually what happened was one of the fire chiefs or something, he took videos of the training, of the qualifications physical test, and then he shared the VHS. Because the women were just not doing it, and it was kind of funny. They couldn't carry the hose, they couldn't climb the ladder, they couldn't do any of the stuff. It was laughable, like the difference between the WNBA and the NBA. Sorry, facts are different things. And so he didn't get in because somebody, the FID hit the shan and somebody said, hey, this guy's sending around videos of women. He's anti-women. He's anti-women. He's not pro-fireman or pro-man. He's just anti-women, right? So they had to sort of wag the dog, do it in reverse. And the tail starts wagging the dog. And they said, we got to have X amount of minority women. We're going to go find them and get them. And so you wind up with Pacific Palisades, Karen Bass, and the entire fire chief staff as lesbians. But wait a second. 10 minutes ago, you said there's a man can be a woman. What is a woman? We put somebody on the Supreme Court who says, I don't know what a woman is. I'm not a biologist. Good answer to get on in this day and age, in Biden's America. George Soros. But that's not the right answer. So these people, can they be trusted? You got to stand up. You got to resist against. You got to fight. You got to reject the tyranny. I saw a clip the other night about Joyless Reed. She said that the U.S. is only marginally better than Iran. The U.S. is only marginally better than Iran. Really? Excuse me. Sorry. The U.S. is only marginally better than Iran. Really? Joy Reed's been pretty good to you. But so why don't you go to Iran? Because the Iranian women are saying it's pretty awesome right now, when Israel and the United States are destroying the tyrants that Jimmy Carter put in, along with France and the Soviet Union. So yeah, I don't think what you're saying is true. It's not true. Not only that, Whoopi Goldberg is saying that blacks have it worse in the United States than in anybody in the Middle East. She gets I think she gets $16 million a year, sitting there in a muumuu and soccer sandals, belching her ignorance. I mean, she is the stupidest. She's as dumb as a box of rocks. She wondered why Dr. Jill, wasn't the Surgeon General or something. She's a doctor, ain't she? No, one of the ones who's paid less than her, because I guess she's a little lighter color than her. She says no, she's just a doctor, or she's a doctor of education. Yeah. Hint: I read her dissertation. I read about it. It's a Lulu. Trust me. So anyway, so what do? These people are untrustworthy. It's time to speak truth to power. It's time to get rid of the emperor's new clothes, because they're lost. So here's the solution. I'm just going to wrap it up real quick. I want to encourage you. I'm a coach. I'm a truth teller. I want to lead the resistance, and we got to start with you men. So, just giving you an example. I want to encourage you. I was at Home Depot one day, and this young guy, he had a guy walking alongside him who wasn't much older than him, and he was pulling a pallet full of boxes, a pallet jack, and he's going around the corner and trying to dodge the customers, and the thing turned. He turned a little too quickly. The whole load wasn't proper, and it fell off, and he just looked devastated. I said to him, I'm kind of glad he looked devastated, because he could have said, oh, well, whatever. But I could see the look in his eyes, and I said, hey, look, I just retired, and if I had a dime for every time I did something like that, I could buy this store. And the dude just lit up. I mean, he was so happy. I don't know if anybody's ever told him anything like that. I know his female teachers couldn't. His female teachers probably didn't, and coaches, and maybe his parents, maybe his dad wasn't around. Maybe because he abandoned him, maybe the co-worker wasn't going to say that. I mean, somebody had to say it. We have to mentor. We've got to fight. It's not enough to mentor. We've got to fight the tormentors. We got to fight these tormentors that are killing us. Our people are dying for want of wisdom, for a lack of vision. So here's the steps. Number one, don't panic. That's what they want. They want to get you into the prison, school to prison pipeline. They want to get you to wash out of the system. They want you to give up. Don't panic. You're not going to accomplish anything by panicking. That's what they want. Wake up. Know your enemy. Admit the problem, like the 12-step program. We have a 10-step program. It's called the Bill of Rights. But the first step is, wake up. Can't do this if you're unconscious. Be conscious of it. Know who your enemy is. That's the art of war. Know who your enemy is. And they are the left. The left. There's no liberal anymore. There was a time when that word meant something, but it's the left. It's the enemies. It's the Marxists. And ultimately, it's the Democrats. And the women run that party. Women like Gas and Nuisance and Tampon Tim and Kimmy Kimmel, Colbert, Leibowitz, Mom Dummy. Could go on too long. Bernie. BS. Bernie Sanders. Creep. These are creeps. Hunter Biden. Joe Biden. James Biden, his brother. All of that syndicate, crime family. Comey. Tilly. The guy, I forget their names. Their names aren't worth it, but the ones that ran the FBI and all that stuff. So don't panic. Wake up. Know your enemy. Don't blame yourself. That's what they want. Don't blame yourself. Don't shame yourself. That's what they want. Join the men, not the women. You listening, Fetterman? You're seeing it. God bless you. You know, people thought you were like dead in the head because of your stroke or whatever. You're waking up. You're waking up. You're the only decent Democrat. I will trade you for Thune or one of these rhinos like Mitch McConnell. Come on over. The water's fine. It's not polluted. It's not the nanny state. So don't panic. Be encouraged. Fight the tormentors, not your mentors. You do that by admitting the problem and knowing your enemy. Realize this is a civil war. This is a fight for survival. The existential, it's a fight for civilization versus the barbarianism that will take over if we don't. The surest way for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. You can't do that anymore. If you do, just know that you've been warned. So don't panic. It's what they want. Wake up. Know your enemy. Admit the problem. Don't blame yourself. Don't shame yourself. That's what they want. They want it. Their currency is shame. That's why people like charlatan defraud can keep this game going and blah blah. I don't have any guilt. Zero. The tank reads zero. The meter says zero on white guilt. There's no reason I should have it. I'm African American anyway, but I don't have any kind of guilt. I know who does. And join with the men, not the women, not the left. E pluribus unum, out of many one. Maybe we don't have the same, I heard an analogy that, a bunch of Hell's Angels come into a bar and they're gonna fight everybody in there. And you don't ask the person on your right or left, who they voted for or what they like to watch on TV or what sports team. You gotta join up with them. And the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I'm your friend, and I know your enemy. I'm trying to tell you who it is. And Martin Luther King said, "Don't burn, baby, burn." That's what they want. He said, "But learn, baby, learn, so you can earn, baby, earn." So we found out in our life how you don't have to take STEM courses. Maybe you don't want to. Maybe you don't want to go into computers or AI or whatever. Maybe you want to go into a trade like Europe has been doing our whole life. You don't always go to college. You go to a trade. So, shut them off, shut them out, the liar tyrants. Rise up, resist, rebel. Not the way they want you to. Not the way they want you to. Do it in the right way. Lincoln said that right makes might, not the other way around. So don't fall into their system. They'll get you. And they'll push you to try to do it. Stay strong, be disciplined, stand up, speak up. Like I did to that lady in HR. I said, hey, I understand what you think you're trying to do, but 60% of the people in college are women, 60% of lawyers. We graduate more lawyers than we do engineers or scientists. So you want to talk about STEM? These guys are happy if all you do is study law, which is a travesty. It's nothing. I got a brother who's a lawyer, and now he's a judge. But he said, man, it's nothing like, he says, at the end of the day, you have something. You build buildings. You can walk into it and look at it. He goes, all we do is push paper. We print paper. We kill trees and make each other miserable. That's the only profession where you hire one member of it to to protect you from another member of it. And we'll do a whole thing on justice and law and what it is and what it isn't. But so, here's the solution. Encourage each other, provoke one another to good works. Don't panic. That's what they want. Don't give in. Don't give up. Wake up. Know your enemy. Admit the problem. Don't blame yourself. Don't shame yourself. That's what they want. Join up for the men, not the women, like Gas and Nuisance and Kimmy Kimmel and Colbert and Seth Meyers, who cries. How do you ever get that show anyway? But he cried when Hillary lost. My mother's name was Hillary, and I have got 3 daughters. That's another thing they'll pass for logic. You're talking to somebody about what DEI did to you and your kids, your sons' lives, how it ruined them, maybe ruined your daughter's life too. And they'll say, well, I've got 3 daughters. Okay. In Latin, that's called non sequitur. What does that have to do with anything? I would have said that if I had 5 daughters, 7, 10. That's a non sequitur. It means it doesn't follow. It's not even connected. You're making a point about the truth and the right and justice, and they say, well, I've got 3 daughters. Some of my best friends are Democrats. My grandfather was a Democrat. I heard this absolute moron who was a journalist the other night I saw him on a little YouTube clip, and he's talking about my grandfather had a picture of FDR. Well, I'm glad it wasn't a picture of Hitler or Robert E. Lee, but I repeat myself, but what? Your father? They always said that blacks have 3 pictures: Martin Luther King, JFK, and Jesus up in their house. That's their Trinity. That's their Holy Trinity, at least in the past generations. I don't know. Maybe now it's, charlatan defraud and Whoopi Goldberg. I don't know. Michelle Obama. I don't know. But whatever. I mean, think about what those guys said. Martin Luther King said, you never have the right to do what's wrong. He said, don't burn, baby, burn, but learn, baby, learn, so you can earn, baby, earn. And don't learn by what they call education. Look what happened when they tried to shut down the precious Department of Education. And Maxine Waters goes in there, going nuts. I sent a check to a cash as a tip to the gentleman, that brave man, Harefield, James Harefield. He stood in the doorway and kept her away from it. She has no business in that. It was Department of Education. Remember, Doge said, hey, this is BS. Well, of course it is. Those who've been paying attention knew that it was BS. So don't think of the word education. What did Mark Twain say? I never let schooling get in the way of my education. Don't regurgitate, cooperate, and graduate. Junior high, elementary school, they've got you. I'll just end with one story. To PhD, they own the system. They've worked it. Dennis Prager wrote a great book called Still the Best Hope, and he has a chapter in the UC system. And it's just a list of all the different offices they created at this one UC school. And it's just this long list. The Secretary of Undersecretary of Diversity, and Equity and Inclusion. Diversity, Equity, and the Assistant Undersecretary of Inclusion, and the People of Diversity Professor, the Vice President of the Diversity, Perversity, blah, 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 blah. They created all this, there's more, they say there's more administrators than there are professors. William F. Buckley said he'd rather, I think he went to Yale. Yeah, he went to Yale. He said, I'd rather be governed by the 3,000 people, the first 3,000 people in the Boston telephone directory, it was a phone book of the day, than by the 3,000 professors at Harvard. And I was shocked. There's that many at Harvard. I remember one time when this Republican guy, no, was he a Democrat? I don't know. His name was Packwood. He was a senator from Oregon. And he got in trouble He got in trouble with women, some sort of a Me Too thing. And his counter was sort of like, I have 3 daughters. He said, half of the women on my staff, half of the people on my staff are women. Like, I'm a good guy. I'm on the right side. I'm on your side. So I said, whoa. I wonder how many people are on his staff. It's a senator from Oregon. How many people are on his staff? So I look it up, 40. So, so his point is 20 of. His point isn't, why do I have 40 people on my staff? What do they do? Send out glossies to get them reelected? Photo ops? That's your money. So I started thinking, well, there's 100 senators. That means there's 4,000. The company I was in, it was a startup, but it was climbing fast. It wasn't at 4,000. It took it years to get. There's 4,000 people working for. I bet you Thomas Jefferson had 4 people. Well, it was different then. It wasn't as complicated. It wasn't as complicated. What? The guy doubled the size of the United States and fought the Barbary pirates to the shores of Tripoli and birthed the country. He needed, because we have more people, we need to have more crap that Doge can point out, and everybody says, nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. So this machine, this nightmare of Democrat government bureaucracy, the government, which is Democrat bureaucracy, the Democrat government, the government education mediatainment. Look at the media. Even if you make it through high school and maybe college, look what they do to professional athletes. Those used to be the guys that were like the men, the gladiator. Look what they do to them. They make them wear pink shoes, and they put stupid things like end racism in the end zone. Oh, end race. Oh, huh. Look at that, honey. It says end racism in the end zone. Oh, should we do it now or after the first quarter or at halftime? Or how are we going to end racism? How ridiculous. Shelby Steele does a great job of explaining. So they got you. They got you cradle to grave. What about if it's against their religion? I don't think if they had a bunch of Muslim players, they would put eat ham in the end zone or liberate women or something. But no, they can just play this game where they will throw money at it, and it'll make the half-breeds like Colin Crap Your Neck happy for a while, playing their game, the Obamas. We can really do something about it. They're cowards. They're cowards. And they make these guys, like, maybe it's the guy's religion to not want to see drag queen nuns like the Dodgers did. Or maybe he doesn't want to stay home on a trip to the White House because he actually likes the president. Are allowed to say that? Nope. The discourse regime, the tyrants, the fascists, the thought police, they got you. They got you cradle to grave. They even make these guys, and the guys, well, they can cry all the way to the bank because they make $10,000 per trip to the plate, but then they have to shame them by making them wear a rainbow hat or celebrate the diversity. Diversity is perversity. And even, diversity makes us stronger. Stronger together, that's Hillary. But, she called half the country deplorables, irredeemable. Forward together. These are all Marxist nonsense sloganeering that don't do anything for anybody except destroy things. The thief comes only to kill, steal, and destroy. That's it. That's enough, isn't it? So don't let them kill your country. Now's the time for all good men to come to the aid of the country. These are the times that try men's souls. Stand up, put up, fight. The women that are real women will thank you someday for saving their country and their sons and their daughters and everything. It doesn't get to be the game the way you want it played. Remember that movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? I don't know if you saw it, 70s, late 1900s, but they asked, what do you think about Nurse Ratched, a.k.a. Hillary or Pelosi or any of these other wicked witches? He said, well, Doc, she likes a rigged deck, you know what I mean? He held up his playing cards. She likes a rigged deck, you know? That's horrible. Don't do this henhouse horse hockey to us. We have rights too. In fact, we gave you your rights, so you ought to be a little bit more differential. So anyway, keep your head up, fight. Let's do it. Let's set up that fight. This is Dr. Jeremiah Gunn, the undocumented expert whose PhD is not piled higher and deeper on top of the MS, which is more the same, or the BS, which is BS. By the way, one little note, we're going to talk about glossary here, but it's time to call it caca de la vaca, which in Spanish, it's cow caca. It's not BS anymore. Men aren't slinging the BS. There's no reason to call it bull. And it's their time to have a little bit of honor by saying it's cow S. No, it's cow shite. It's cow shite. They're the ones who've been slinging it the most. Whether they're women like Newscomb or women like Joy Reid or AOC or Crockett. I mean, man, Pocahontas. Just as dumb as the day is long, and yet they're not hiding. Ilhan Omar, Tariq Aziz, Tarib Shalib, or whatever the heck. They're not hiding. They're not running in fear. It's time they do. They need to go to jail. They need to get out of the country. And if men, the surest way for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. So I'm talking to you, good men. Let's get it together. Let's do it. Your children will thank you. And your posterity. That's what the founding fathers and mothers did this for your posterity. The country you save will be your own. So come, let us reason together. Let's do it. Thank you. I love you. Go in peace, truth, love, justice. Not social justice. There's no such thing. We're going to cover that another time. Justice. What about if we had that? Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something? Not equity, equality. Big difference. Quality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. That's social engineering. That's what one shall call ridiculousness. So anyway, thank you. Go in peace. We went long today, but catch up next time. Take care. I'll stop at the stop sign twice at the next one. Thank you. Take care. Look up. Your redemption draweth nigh. Or we're going to nobly save or meanly lose the last best hope of men on earth. That's how Lincoln put it. That's it. That's the moment of truth. That's what's going to happen. That's what's in play. We're going to nobly save or meanly lose the last best hope for man on earth. Till next time, thank you. Dr. Jeremiah Gunn, Professor No, KNOW, saying thank you. Thank you for listening. Can't do this without you. Like Martin Luther King said, we may all have come in different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. He was right. Take care. Thank you.